Here? He said.
By the time it'll probably be on the other side. Light and falling over here. Yeah, you can do that.
Morning, Dick.
Morning.
Hi. Taping.
They didn't pick the shady part.
I don't know where they're supposed to stand, so you direct them where they got to Here, we'll
Morning, Lorraine.
Didn't you hear me yell?
No, I'm sorry, I didn't. I heard a lot of people yelling. Oh, like I was supposed to figure. I thought you were talking to John Delury or something.
So you can get confused.
Oh.
He's not in. He's all upset. I saw him.
I don't think I know Bob. That was nice.
I think that's where we go back to.
Oh, really?
Ma, we're going to put you up here in the shade.
We're going to put you up there.
She was amending our own husband. The father.
Yeah.
I couldn't see it when he said it in court. I was surprised.
now like to introduce Reverend Travis from the Wilmington United Methodist Church for our invocation.
Abraham Lincoln said, "It is for the living rather to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fall have thus so far nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these hollow dead we take increased devotion, that we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people should not perish from the earth." Let us pray. Gracious God, as we gather to pay tribute to those who set aside their plans and dreams to answer the call of their country, we give thanks for those who have fought against tyranny and oppression to preserve freedom. We give thanks for those who served bravely and returned home to continue to serve as faithful citizens by their lives and their choices. In this moment, we pause to remember those who gave the ultimate sacrifice, offering up their lives so that others may possess the treasures of liberty. May their labor never be in vain, and may the high principles for which they fought never be compromised or abandoned. Teach us by the lessons of these soldiers' and sailors' valor to live lives worthy of their sacrifice. Teach us to fully participate in the process of government, standing up for justice, equality, and liberty for all people. By the witness of these gallant people, teach us to be willing to set aside comfort, safety, and personal gain to ensure the rights of all people, so that the ideals of our Constitution and the highest principles of humankind may guide our nation in all its deeds and actions. Amen.
Again, I'd like to welcome everybody here today and thank you for coming this day to show your respect for those people who gave their lives in service to our country. Your presence here today shows you have not forgotten. It seems especially relevant today as we continually hear of American casualties across the sea in Afghanistan and Iraq. Memorial Day provides an occasion to demonstrate a more solemn level of reverence for some of America's most courageous soldiers, those who did not return from the battlefield. We call to mind the heroism of those who died while on duty and their willingness to serve a greater cause than themselves. With a deep sense of patriotism and a firm commitment to values that make the United States a beacon of freedom, these men and women fought on the front lines of battles that shaped the course of human history. In doing so, they distinguished themselves as authentic and enduring heroes. Although it is important to set aside a special time during the year to recognize fallen soldiers, our expressions of gratitude are not limited to one day. Whenever we exercise the privileges of our citizenship in a free and democratic nation, we demonstrate a tribute to those soldiers who died fighting to secure our liberties. These citizen warriors, they're among us today. And some are sitting here. Look at these men again. Look at what they are, what they have been, and what good they have done for their country and the cause of freedom around the world. Honor them and their comrades whose graves we visit today. Look to them for guidance for the present and guidance for the future. We should not look at the era in which they toiled and sacrificed as if we were visiting a museum. We should look at what they did and how they did it, and in doing so, honor them by imitating their courage, their sacrifice, and their excellence. Their accomplishments are astounding. In addition, we should learn from them. Those who have made the ultimate sacrifice were certainly not eager to die or sustain the great suffering and pain they endured, but they were willing to make this great sacrifice in the name of freedom. They were born brave and required, but when they were motivated not by bravery, but by duty to God and country. They are truly democracy's children who selflessly died for our country. I would like to now introduce Senator Bruce Tarr to say a few words.
Thank you very much, Lou, and good morning.
It's an honor to be with all of you here today, particularly men and women of our police department, our fire department, our scouts, certainly our high school band, which is doing a tremendous job for us today as every day, all of the men and women in our veterans organizations, and all the citizens of this community as we stand here on this glorious day as free Americans who can prosecute our lives in any way that we wish to because of the men and the women that we honor here. Men and women who are historic in their nature and yet come from the ranks of our neighbors, our family, and our friends. Today we think about the fact that it was during the middle of the Civil War that we first experienced the tradition that takes place here with us today on this cemetery. Then it was called Decoration Day, and it was a very simple act of dedicating the graves and decorating the graves of men and women, and particularly men at that time who had fought in the Civil War. The simple act of saying thank you carried such magnitude that it carries forward in this tradition today. And yet it recognizes another tradition, a tradition that in this country, from war to war, from conflict to conflict, from generation to generation, we are a great nation because men and women are willing to put on a uniform and stand in harm's way for the ideals that we share, and share not only for ourselves as Americans, but wish for every person on the face of this earth. And so today we stand and we think about sacrifice. We think about the loss of a life, or the loss of a limb, or the loss of a family member. We think about enduring psychological scars that we who have not fought may never understand. And we think about the fact that we are united. We are united in that belief that what has been done by the men and women in uniform is a gift of freedom. It's a gift of liberty. And we as Americans have a responsibility never to take that for granted, and to always remember those who have served and those who have given. This day is an important day in all of our lives to find that place in our heart which belongs to us as Americans and belongs to our veterans, as we show that we love them, we care about them, we don't forget. We are reinvigorated today in those feelings, but every day of our lives, every day, we should say thanks. And today, with those two simple words and that simple act of gratitude, we reach out and say to everyone who has served and everyone who serves us still, thank you. We care about you, and you have made us the greatest nation on the face of this earth. Thank you very much.
I would also like to introduce the Chairman of the Board of Selectmen, Mike Newhouse, and all the other selectmen are here, Mike McCoy, Charlie Fiore, and Ray Lepore.
Good morning. It certainly is a privilege and a pleasure to share some of this time in this service with all of you this morning, and thank you very much on behalf of the town for being here. Looking back over the course of the years that I've been a selectman, I would say that offering a few remarks at both Memorial Day and Veterans Day are among my favorite responsibilities. It's both humbling and challenging to try and put into words the very deep and profound respect and admiration that we all share towards our servicemen and women. It is a somewhat daunting task to try to describe the array of emotions that we all feel when TAPS echoes from the hillside, and it's difficult to articulate the depth of the gratitude that we feel as we listen to the roll call of Wilmington's fallen heroes. In gathering my thoughts for today's ceremony, I wondered, why is it always difficult to try and put these words together? And as I thought about that, I was reminded of Abraham Lincoln's words from the Gettysburg Address, which say that the world will little remember what I say here, but it can never forget what they did here. It is true that the world will little remember what any of us say here this morning, And I've come to believe that the reason for that is because the words simply aren't enough. When it comes to honoring those who fought for us and who have died for us, words are indeed a good start, but they simply are not enough to describe how we feel. It seems to me the best way to honor the men and women who have given their very lives for us is to emulate them and to be more like them. Not just today, not just this week or this month, but always. It begs the question, how can we as the beneficiaries of their extraordinary sacrifices all work towards being more like them? To answer that question, I thought about the many things that the men and women in uniform share, what I call the common denominators. These common denominators seem to prevail amongst people from ages 23 to 85. First and foremost, they are an extraordinarily unselfish group. They put the best interests of others before their own. They also are people of action. They talk less and they do more. When they do talk, they mean what they say and they tell the truth. People in uniform don't obsess over problems. They assess, adapt, and overcome them. They are resilient. Likewise, they don't judge a man by how hard he gets knocked to the ground, but rather how determined he is to get back up. While they command respect, they don't feel entitled to anything. They insist on earning their keep. Men and women of uniform are practical. They are never impressed, nor are they critical about what kind of car anybody drives. They truly believe in teamwork, and they are sincerely more interested in getting results than getting credit. Men and women in uniform, they do their best work under fire, and they never use adversity as an excuse to quit. They are disciplined and deliberate. They resist the temptation to overreact to any situation. They are courageous. They not only risk their lives, but they do so proudly, even when on a mission that may be politically unpopular. These are just some of the qualities that I've found in our fighting men and women again and again. And I'm sure that you can think of many more. But to me, the point is this. Let's continue to recognize our heroes in uniform with our presence, and let's continue to tell them and their families how deeply thankful we are for their incredible sacrifices. Let's continue to remind each other how uniquely fortunate we are to live under a mantle of freedom woven by the distinguished and dedicated service of the men and women we acknowledge today. But more than that, let's continue to honor them by emulating them and working hard to be more like them. Rest assured, if we do that, we will be far more likely to preserve the liberty and the freedom for which so many have sacrificed life and limb. And in the meantime, we surely will make our neighborhoods, our town, and our country a better place in which to live. Thank you all again very much for being here.
Thank you, Mike. Now I'd like to introduce our state representative, Jim Maselli.
Pleasure to be here today. Pleasure to be here today on this most solemn occasion and to commemorate all of those who lie out there, those who lie beyond, and those who are serving in Iraq, Afghanistan, and other points around the globe. And I applaud the band, fire department, the police department, the grounds people who have taken care of the town, and I've got a few words that I'd like to say. We come here today, this 26th day of May, 2008, to pay tribute to every American service member who died defending our great nation. Some died here on American soil, while so many others died overseas on foreign land. so that we may all sleep soundly and feel protected back home. As George Orwell once said, we sleep safely in our beds because men stand ready in the night, and that I'll amend that to men and women, stand ready in the night to visit violence on those who would do us harm. And we must never lose sight of that. There are people who are defending our freedom. There are people who are defending everything we do day in and day out. At home, we do not see the daily atrocities and horrific situations soldiers experience every day during wartime. We owe a debt of gratitude not only to those servicemen and women who died, but also to their families and friends who were forced to persevere without their loved ones. For every soldier who risks and then later loses his or her life to keep us safe as a nation, we grieve for them. In this overwhelming grief, we must not forget the bravery and sacrifice of those who were taken from us too soon, nor the cause they fought and died for. Unfortunately, sometimes freedom has a tremendous price. On behalf of the Commonwealth and a grateful nation, I would like to commemorate all those who served our great country, and I would also like to remember, and I can't be more emphatic about this, those who lost their lives to retain our freedom. Their lives and their sacrifices will forever live in our hearts. I'm not leaving to go away somewhere. I'm leaving to go to Tewksbury because they have a service that starts around noontime at 12:30, and they do it in reverse. They have it at the cemetery first and then the parade. But I wouldn't miss this for anything. Thank you.
I would also like to recognize our town manager that's here today. He's been very supportive of veterans this week and all year long. Mike Kyra. I'd like to invite all the commanders of the Honor Guards to come front and center.
Salute. Two. Okay.
I would now ask the Wilmington High School Band for a musical presentation. In Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, on November 19, 1863, the President Abraham Lincoln delivered his now famous speech at the dedication of the National Cemetery at Gettysburg, a cemetery that had the graves of soldiers from the North and the South that had given up their lives for what they had believed in. It is now my great pleasure to introduce Casey Hera, a 7th grade student from the Wilmington Middle School, who will read the Gettysburg Address.
Fourscore and 7 years ago, our fathers brought forth upon this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now that we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure while we are met on a great battlefield of the war. We have come to dedicate a portion of it as a final resting place for those who have gave their lives, that that nation might live. It's altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But in a longer sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggle here, have consecrated it far above our poor power to add or detract. The world will never know, nor long remember what we say here, but we can never forget what they did here. It is for us, the living, rather to be dedicated here, to the unfinished work which they have thus far so nobly carried on. It is rather for us to be dedicated to the great task remaining for us, that from these honored dead, we take increased devotion to that cause for which they have gave the last full measure of devotion, that we highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, this nation shall have a new birth of freedom, and that the government of the people, by the people, and for the people shall not perish from the earth. Thank you.
Thank you, Casey. That was beautiful. It is now my pleasure to introduce Rebecca Lodato, a 7th grade student from the Wilmington Middle School, who will now read a poem called The Names on the Wall.
On the morning of a clouded day, a woman went to see the names engraved upon the wall that bore them solemnly. With arms held tight across her chest to fight the growing chill, she read the names of lives cut short and dreams left unfulfilled. Ahead of her she saw a man with a withered, haunted face, who sat upon his chair of wheels that brought him to this place. She watched him as with withered hand he tried to touch a name, but struggle as he might, the strength he needed never came. She walked to him and slowly kneeled and looked into his eyes, said, "Sir, I'll help you touch the name that you have recognized." With shaking voice he answered her, a gruffness to his tone, "I need no help. If it takes all day, I'll touch this wall alone. My limbs may be of little use, but for all that I may lack. So far from home, this boy's life ceased, at least I made it back. I owe him now to find the strength to touch this wall alone, to honor my friend's memory, how briefly his light shone." She gathered her words carefully as she gazed upon his face. "We all have different reasons, sir, for coming to this place. I was just a little girl when you were over there, and could never hope to understand the pain that you still bear. But those of us who stayed behind were touched in our own way. We bear the scars of loved ones lost in places far away. Our brothers, fathers, sisters, who returned not quite the same. We watched with helpless agony and wished to ease their pain. We none of us were left untouched by all that you went through. And you'd be helping me, sir, by letting me help you." He nodded slightly, wordlessly, and offered her his hand. Then woman, weary soldier, little girl, and young lost man, whispering together, "Buddy, this is from all of us," reached out, hand in hand, and touched the name upon the wall, by Tracy Santana.
Thank you, Rebecca. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Jessica Bernard, an 8th grade student at the Wilmington Middle School, who will now perform the missing man presentation to explain what this table represents over here to my left. Jessica?
would like to explain the meaning of the items on this special table. The table is round to show our everlasting concern for our missing men. The tablecloth is white, symbolizing the purity of their motives when answering their call to duty. The single rose displayed in a vase reminds us of the life of each of the missing and their loved ones and friends of these Americans who keep the faith, awaiting answers. The vase is tied with a red ribbon, symbol of our continued determination to account for our missing. A slice of lemon on the bread plate is to remind us of the bitter fate of those captured and missing in a foreign land. A pinch of salt symbolizes the tears endured by those missing and their families who seek answers. The Bible represents the strength gained through faith to sustain those lost from our country, founded as one nation under God. The glass is inverted to symbolize their inability to share the toast. The chairs are empty. They are missing.
Now, I'd like to call the honor guards to attention and have the commanders of all the service organizations front and center at the flagpole, please. It's now my honor to do the roll call of all the KIAs from Wilmington. William E. Butterworth. Charles L. Smith. John Edwinson, Jr. James W. Sudbury. Joseph L. Ring. Max Jacobs. Wesley W. Colburn. Herbert A. Nitchie. Walter R. Joy. Elmer M. Drew. Benedict Lip. John A. Martins. Albert L. Ayotte. Joseph C. Cochran. Francis E. Babine. William F. Cadlick. Leslie W. Wicks. Stephen J. Pilcher. Walter F. Goss. Chester L. Garrity. Henry T. Fitzgerald. John L. Berrigan. Herbert F. Johnson, Jr. Antonio Gagnon. Arthur M. Starr. William A. Buck. Ronald D. Eaton. Colin J. Concannon. Michael Davis. William H. Connaughton. John J. Thornton, Jr. Robert W. Parent. Richard W. Welch. John A. Rich. Ralph Pullian. John F. Landry, Jr. Thank you, Commanders. Commanders can now recover. Okay. Yep.
Commander of the rifle team, prepare to fire volley at 3.
Tail. Present. On.
Present. Ho!
Now the commanders may recover. I would like to thank the town of Wilmington, DPW. What a wonderful job they've done at the cemetery and the whole parade route today. Police, fire, all the honor guards and service organizations, but most especially everybody that showed up here today. All the family members that have lost loved ones overseas, and everybody just come out here today to pay their respects and to be here. Thank you. I would now ask Reverend Travis for a final benediction.
Go forth in the love and grace of God, living out your freedom and liberty in ways that are blessings for others. Amen.
That concludes our ceremonies here today. I'd ask all the honor guards to form up on the street for the pass and review at the 4th of July building. Thank you again, for everybody, for coming out today.
Were they that I guess the 3 guys are actually, they're looking for them now.
Honor guard. Mark time. Mark. Honor guard. Mark time. Mark. Oh, lay him.
There we go. Yeah, up time.
Olivia, are you walking without your shoes?
You'll walk, you'll have to play.
Street beat. Then hut. Mark time. Mark. Forward. March. Lobby service.
It's right there. Hi, Liz.